Hello and welcome to the Menfulness podcast. I'm Sam Watling. Thank you for being here once again as we continue to look for better ways to communicate about the complicated parts of life. We're trying to figure out how to share the things that we're used to suppressing or feeling like we're supposed to be able to handle without struggling. We want you to know it's not weak to speak about what is troubling you. In fact, speaking from experience, it could be the best thing you ever do. So please get in touch. Let us know if this podcast is reaching you and if it's helping. Let us know how you are. Can we do something to help? We've got access to events, online spaces, and even affordable and funded counselling if that's something that you might need. Have a look at menfulness.org or book onto something via meetup.com/menfulness. A bit of feedback from our last episode with Simon Long. This is from Andy via WhatsApp. Just listen to the podcast. Thank you, Sam and Simon. I completely resonated with Simon's situation. The wearing of the smile and getting home to a different you. That's so true. Looking forward to part 2. Keep up the great work, gents. Well, thanks to that message alone, Andy, we finished our conversation, and it's right here, right now, just for you. Thanks for the great feedback, man. As someone who feels worthless without the validation of others, I need to hear from you all about what is so great about this podcast. Would you like to come on here? You can and should, ASAP. Have you hit the notification bell yet? If not, why not? Don't you care about me? Some breaking news now. Men seen looking fresh on the streets of York as Menfulness launched their new merch store. That's right, June 2023, Menfulness launches our new merch store, so you, yes you, can support the work we do to help men and reduce stigma around men's mental health, all the while looking sexy as a mother. Keep an eye on Menfulness and all the socials for more information on what and how and where and when you can get yours. Now on to today's episode. He's back once again. It's Simon Long joining us. His last podcast has already had over 100 plays in just 2 weeks. And it's now time to finish our conversation with Simon and hear all about the breakfast club that he runs for us, as well as loads more about Simon's story, including why Menfulness is so important to him. We do touch on some triggering topics, as you might expect, including eating disorders, self-harm, bereavement. So bear that in mind before you get into this conversation. If you've got something going on right now, then your well-being is of the utmost importance to us. And it is a pretty emotional one at times, but there's also plenty of hope in there too. We talk counselling, mental health first aid, and music, with all of Simon's For the Record selections in there as well. If you want to hear those playlists, by the way, the easiest way to find them is at menfulness.org/podcast, where you can also apply to come on here too and talk to me, and I would love to hear your story, so please do get in touch. Okay, I've gone on long enough. The wait is finally over. He's back with us again. It's Simon Long, everybody. Shall we talk Breakfast Club?
Yeah.
The newest addition to our roster, which, you know, it's amazing that people will come to us and go, I've got this idea, can I have a go? But this in particular, like, seems to be, it's not like had to grow. It just immediately seems to have loads of people turning up to it. How many have you done now?
I think it'll be our 6th or 7th in a couple of weeks' time.
Okay, and it's monthly?
Monthly, Sundays, not specifically the first or the last.
Yeah, just when it's right.
Just whenever, and to fit round me and to fit... Cause, I tried to fit it round not when I had Henry, because then it eats into our time.
Yeah.
But Henry shows an interest that he the last couple of times, he bought himself a little glitter tattoo kit.
Oh, yeah.
So for a little bit of pocket money, he'll sit there and tattoo people's arms. First time he did it, there was nobody turned up, so he wasn't impressed. He brought his guitar as well, because he wanted to play that. And then the last time he came, we only had a couple of kids down, but then some of the guys just gave their arms.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try and alternate. Does it?
Yeah. Well, I run the kitchen side of it myself. Andy Knowles comes down regularly, and it's quite helpful to have him, because then he's a little bit of a host as well, because he'll introduce or incorporate people into a conversation. Yeah. Originally we had I still put loads of different tables down, but if there's only a dozen people, it's generally similar to a Menfulness night.
Yeah.
They'll just sit around one table.
That's lovely.
But yeah, some will bring kids with them. Some people are there regularly. We had a guy that came about and you can tell, similar to a Menful night session, you can tell by the body language whether they're going to be open to be receptive to somebody talking to them, or whether they just want to sit there or whatever. And we did have a guy came down. He went and sat down. Can't remember his name, but I won't share it anyway if I do. And he sat there and he sat by himself, had a coffee, and I was busy.
Yeah.
And then it turned out at the end that this guy had heard about Menfulness and he'd not left his house in 3 weeks.
Wow. And
he'd chosen that time to come out, and people went up to him because it's that whole community of guys there for the same thing. Are you all right? So I am. I'm just fine by myself at the minute.
All right. Okay. So he was sort of tentatively getting.
And then he had a conversation a little bit later on, but you just know who to kind of go over the top with, or say to Andy, that's so and so.
Yeah.
If you can just say hi, and Andy will go and sit with them, and there'll already be a conversation going on here.
Good, man.
And if it was only him that turned up, that's brilliant. It's not a money making exercise.
No.
The money be reinvested back into Menfulness for whatever useful reason, and it's just been receptive. Just sausage bacon sandwiches. Well, I say they're very nice. Get good feedback of the event itself. I think the most we've probably had is about 25 dads and the same amount of kids.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing, considering it's just got going.
Yeah, cool. Because it's not the same night or the same day, you just get a different mix of people.
Of course, yeah. It's in Poppleton. It's at the church
All Saints Hall.
All Saints Hall. Yeah.
Because they used to do it before, and it was more Yorkie Dads based to encourage children when we're at Lidget Grove.
Yeah.
But because Menfulness is more about a safe, warm, welcoming environment for men, I don't want. You can bring your children along.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely fine. There's big enough space to be able to still have not necessarily private conversation, but a quiet conversation if you want it. And there is a room that we can lock further down that we can put the kids in. But nobody's ever said that it could have been done with a bit quieter.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of guys that have come down and said, I didn't know we could bring kids.
So the next
and that would have been an outlet for them to bring the kids. It's absolutely fine. I don't encourage it, but you can't say no, and it's not like we don't allow.
No, and it's a good. The fact that none of our other events are like that. They're either on a night or they're specifically talking about. We're there to talk about events things that would be too adult. This is a more casual event where you can bring your kids along, which you might really need. You might not have an opportunity to go and vent to other blokes.
Yeah.
Without your kids. So actually it's a really good different event. It's something I will promise I'll get down to at some point, and I'm really grateful to you, man, for putting that on.
But no, it's good. I enjoy it, and I said last night in the group, because I do suffer with a bit with social anxiety, I do benefit being in the kitchen and there's a little hatch.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the door's open and people do come into the kitchen, but it doesn't worry me.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have Andy there and I have to be out front as well, I don't think it would be what it is now.
Right. But it's one of those things, isn't it? Those with social anxiety try extra hard to not seem like they have social anxiety, and that you're so good with people.
Well, no, and I suggested it in the first place.
I was just saying it's your
Simon,
idea.
I think you would be ideal at running this. I actually suggested it because I think it would help me, like on my Sundays and help other guys. And I don't know. I think I went to. There was something else in the village. And my mum and dad went to it and they came, Simon, you could do so much better with this. We've waited 40 minutes for a bacon sandwich or something. So again, it wasn't a money-making thing. It was just I could do for this for Menfulness. And then there's that village hall there, and it was an ideal layout, a good size, a second room if needed, really good sized kitchen, and you can see everything, and you're not hidden away. And it just ticks the boxes.
Perfect.
And it's self-sufficient with what it cost me to do it, and the room hire.
You're a hero, mate. I love
Thanks.
it. I love it. And are you finding that you're gaining from it then? Are you getting chance to talk to people then?
Getting chance, and people come in the kitchen and little snippets of information they say of what I'm going through and think, it'd be really good to say. Yeah. And Jack's been down the last couple of times. The first time he came down, it was just like, I got like little butterflies because I haven't seen him in ages. And because I know he's busy on a weekend with obviously whatever happens with Poppy during the night, and for him to have time to come down, and Henry came down, and Henry's I think 6 months. It might be. I think he's similar age to Poppy, but similar age to Henry as well. My Henry.
Yeah.
So it's good to see him, and he's been down a couple of times. But he was just like, this is amazing, Si. I got chatting with so and so, and like the conversation, but he was only there for an hour, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that's an hour out of your time where it took him out of his situation,
of course, yeah,
and then went straight back to it.
Yeah,
but and some will come down with a. We had, in fact, last time I was there, a local lady came in, a pensioner, and said, "My husband doesn't really get to do anything. He's part of mind, or no, sorry, age concern. But I think this would be ideal. We only live round the corner." Because when she originally came in, it was just like a lady. It's just like, whoa.
Yeah,
like,
out you go, love. Jeez,
exactly.
Have you seen the sign?
Like, oh, God, how do I tackle this? She said, I just like, is there an organiser or something? I'm like, that's me. How can I help? And then she went, I thought she was going to complain about something. But she was saying that her husband would benefit from it.
Oh, that's really nice.
And I'm like, right. So I was like, well, if you can get him here.
Yeah.
Because my dad's come with his mate, and my dad's in his 80s, and his mate is, so he'll come at the end, and he generally buys everything that is I'd be either thrown away. So that's possibly why we make a little bit more money than normally expected. But I just said to the guys who were there, if we can get him there, and then you let me know where you live, and we'll go and walk him back when he's ready to go. Yeah. If it just gets him an hour of just listening, or even watching kids run about, because that's what back to Lidget Grove time, it was Yorkie dads, and you were there with your dads, but then the local pensioners were also there. Yeah. And it's like, if they don't get to see the grandchildren or their own children,
it's nice for them to be around them.
Yeah. And just for this guy that won't go to these other events or can't get to them, just to be out of the house. Yeah. I mean, it does sound like she also wants him out of the house. Yeah, well, in a little bit of the way.
The amount of blokes that come to our events because they've been strong-armed into it by a wife or a mother or whatever.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons, maybe it's good for them, maybe it's good for the relationship. Sometimes it's good for a relationship to have some distance in it. So I think that's really healthy, isn't it? That she felt like she could walk in there. It wasn't like, oh, it's all very masculine in here and it's all sort of raucous. It's like she felt like she could come in and talk
that somehow she'd got heard about Menfulness.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that was a massive sign I put outside,
yeah.
or whether she's on social media, or whether she's been connected through Mind or Age Concern. I don't know, but
that's
certainly
cool.
I mean, any male person can come and bring the kids. So to get that guy in, and I'm sure my dad lives in Poppleton as well anyway. Right. So maybe it's somebody he knows or somebody that he's walked past.
Is that why, have you got a connection to Poppleton? Is that why
I live in Poppleton.
Yeah, you live there
just on the outskirts, kind of near Weatherby Whaler.
All right, okay,
so
nice.
The location was great. Yeah. Plus, it means I'm only 5 minutes away. Yeah. So it doesn't, if I have got Henry, it doesn't take too much out of my day. Yeah. Plus, there's a co-op that's 2 minutes away. And I don't, I mean, obviously I've been a chef and I've run a pub and businesses, but it's just like, you don't know one week from the next what you're going to have. Yeah. You might have people coming down, they don't want breakfast, or,
of course,
and you just don't know how it's going to go. But
whatever happens, you should never be out of pocket for that event.
Oh, no.
If you're ever like, oh, hang on, I'm out of pocket here, that's something that we should be covering.
No, it's fine.
I don't know if you've had that conversation with Jack.
No,
but it should be. You're doing this. Your time is your donation. So, but we can discuss that if we ever need to. But I hope it goes from strength to strength.
Yeah.
It sounds.
No, I enjoy it. Obviously I cut the bacon and sausage the day before, but it's just like, even though it's half your day, it's like I enjoy that part of being a host. You can tell that you're in hospitality. You can tell the way that you're being amazing, cleaning people's homes and cooking for them on their way in, and just, you're good at it. Like, looking after people feels like what you should be doing. Well, exactly. That's why it's opened my eyes to how could I benefit and move things forward and not pay back, but how can I help people in a more positive way than just cleaning a house and getting paid for doing it?
Yeah, man.
However that may turn out.
That's amazing, man. Thank you. So you mentioned the mental health first aid, which I've done, and I think it's an amazing course, and I think everyone should do it, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
You've done that recently. Tell me about it. How long did it take you? Did you meet some amazing people? How do you feel now you've got it? Do you feel more like confident getting into some conversations with people? You were already pretty good at it anyway, weren't you?
Well, I think I put on a front that I was already pretty good at it. But no, I think having it, and it was only 4 half-day courses, 4 half days. I think it was a Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, which was good for me because it wasn't like 1 week on, and then you've got to remember everything for that week. The lady that hosted it was brilliant.
Shout out Susan Butterfield.
Thank you. And then there were 5 or 6 other people. But again, going into that circumstance, I'd feel down here.
Yeah.
And all these people even though I don't know them, I'd assume that they're like a lot more intellectual, and I'd take like a back seat and just listen to what they were saying. But then when we were split into our 2 or 3 rooms, it was just like something came over, and it was just like I was like talking, and it was like an out of body experience. Like, what the fuck are you doing, Simon? How are you talking like this?
Right.
I know it's through like a Zoom call,
and
it's not in the presence, but no, some of the subject matter, it was good. And it was just like, some of it was mind-blowing of what you could come across, things that you can look out for, the little tasks that you were given, the little bit of homework, research that you had. And then you could connect with some parts of it, of like when they're talking about self-harm and eating disorders and suicide. And it is hard to listen to it. And it's not like when you become a normal first aider and you know CPR, that it's like, oh, I'm going to jump on that next person that's at the side of the road. Oh, I can do CPR. I'm going to save their life.
Yeah.
But being able to talk to somebody that has suicidal thoughts and coming from an empathic way of understanding what they're going through, rather than well, I can't help you. I don't know what to do.
Or think of your kids. Or,
but then
don't do something silly.
But when it explained, like somebody that has suicidal thoughts, they've already planned how they're going to do it. They've put things in place that you can look out for.
And just being like open and being like, well, I'm not going to park my own stuff and my own judgments and just ask questions and be there, because they might never have spoken to anyone about it before.
No. And well, exactly. Or they may have spoken to somebody, but that person has just kind of brushed it off.
Which then puts you in people don't want to talk about this. Because people, there is I think it's, the conversation's growing, isn't it? People are getting better. I think people are understanding it more. But there is still quite a taboo around it. Like,
I think it's a taboo, and I think it's a generational thing as well. Because going back to myself, when I had depression, my dad had a friend whose son died because he had depression. So my dad's way of thinking was, if you've got depression, you're going to kill yourself. So that cut off any conversation I could have with my dad, because he just assumed
it would be
that
like,
unless I would get help, the next step from depression is to kill yourself. And I said to him, like, well, I'm not going to do that. How can you tell me that? I'm like, that isn't supportive, is it?
No, I must admit, I don't know whether he listens to this, and I'm sure he won't mind. But the reality is, I tried to talk to my dad a little bit about it too, and I think I told him about I've not reached anywhere near the point of feeling like I was going to take my own life. I've certainly felt like I'd like to shut my brain up now and again, But I sort of told him about the social anxiety, and the response was, what have you got to be anxious about? And it's like, it's such an honest question, and I know it comes from a good place, and he's right. I've got this, the life that other people would dream of. Half of that is the problem, is that when you've got things going for you that you should be grateful for, and yet you still can't be who you want to be in the world for whatever reason, then there's a disconnect. And so it's like this sort of helps you park all that previous stuff, doesn't it? It's training. It's like, it's empowerment to go, you know how to approach this now. So if someone says, I'm feeling this way. Even though there might be a part of you that's like, what do you mean? There's another part of you that goes, no, I know. I know now that this is, and over time that changes the way that you feel about those conversations.
And it's the way of asking the questions in different ways, like the opening questioning, and just be, and like the little videos that they put together and what you're looking out for, and seeing how people can be agitated. And even, do you remember at the end where, did you have the guy that came on and shared his story and that just hit me? I mean, I could feel myself from a parent point of view of how he tried everything to support his son to the point he was sat in the kitchen with his son signing a form. Was it to go into somewhere? And he just left, went to the toilet, came back. His son had gone. Even that, of how much you've tried yourself, it's still there. However much somebody could say in your front of your face, no, I'm all right. And then for him to do it in that split second. Because he'd obviously planned it, but then... And it's just... It was great for that guy to have taken such a negative thing that's happened in his life to go on this course and then have this discussion and say, I'd like to tell my story for half an hour.
And the fact that that he does that again and again and again, because he knows the impact that will have to all those people coming to that
and it
course.
certainly did.
I'm gonna look his details up and link them, because you're right. He's been through the worst thing in the world. He's recounting it again and again for the benefit of others. There's a chap, Steve Phillips, from the Jordan Legacy, that we met. We met them at the Charlie Dallas Lancaster Foundation ball, and they're very prevalent on social media and LinkedIn and what have you. And he's the father of Jordan, who took his own life, and he now dedicates his life to spreading that message, even though it must be so painful to keep reliving that. To create a purpose from it is incredible, but also to make sure that the amount of people that will be affected by that real story is something special, isn't it? And Susan's such a great teacher anyway, but then to end on that, was it at the very end that you came?
It wasn't at the end. Sorry, it was at the end. It was you could come in for half an hour or an hour before your last session.
That's it, yeah.
And it wasn't compulsory.
Yeah.
If you had the time, if you could make the time. So I think only 3 of us were there.
Yeah.
And even he said, if you want to ask me any questions, you can. Yeah. But the thing that I wrote down, which I'll take with me, is the fact that he said, you never get over it. You just learn to live with it better.
Yeah. Which
is completely true. You never get over whether it's a loss, whether it's suicide or whatever, the loss of a son or daughter, because you never expect them to go before you.
Yeah.
But just the fact that you deal with it better, you do.
Yeah, there was we had Jen on, and she was talking about bereavement, the loss of her baby, and she said that grief doesn't get any smaller; you just grow around it.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh God, yeah, I can, it's such a visual way of putting it, but it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? How could you not relive that forever? You have to change as a person because of it. But yeah, powerful stuff, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah, but it's really good, just re-educating you of what it was. Just the fact that I wasn't working full time and had an opportunity, just like, right, you guys put it in the Menfulness group.
Yeah, it
wasn't the fact that it was subsidised. It was just like, I can make that work around work.
Yeah. Well, we want all of our volunteers to have it if they want to, because I think it means it empowers them, doesn't it? If you're running a session and someone comes up to you and says, I'm really struggling, like, that's not really what you're there for. You're there to facilitate that session. There's no expectation. But if you want to, then it just gives you that little bit of just that bit of confidence in that situation, that you can kind of go, right, well, I can at least signpost, like that booklet that comes with it, that's got like all the different sort of challenges that you might come across. And we're not there to diagnose them, but just to give you that knowledge about what they might be dealing with, and then where you might send them. And I use that a lot, because we will get messages coming through and people come to us because they need help, but it's not something that we offer. That book is right. They've mentioned this. I can tell them what different organisations operate on that. So it's probably worth the money just for that.
I think
book.
So, because it gives the organisation, and it's like, wow, I didn't know there were people there that did that.
Yeah. For everything that you might be going through, there is an organisation that will be there. And so shout out Susan Butterfield. She's a great trainer, and she's been really generous.
Is she in York? I think.
No, I don't think she is. Is she?
I think she's originally.
Was she?
I think so.
Well, I mean,
she's either originally or she said she was from York.
She certainly approached us,
right?
So that would make sense. But she's, I mean, it's all virtual now.
She could be out like Pocklington or something like that. I'm sure she's from around
she's come
here.
across us.
Yeah.
But she's, she does it all virtually now as well, doesn't she? So it's quite handy.
And that wasn't about, because I'm not really into Zooming, but it was good to see like the people on the screen and people interacting.
Yeah.
And again, everybody was from different walks of life of why they wanted it. Some were wanting it because they're part of a big organisation and they needed, or within their discussions, they needed a mental health first aider within a certain amount of people in their company.
Yes.
So it was their go-to of somebody to have a chat with.
Yeah.
And that was really good that they have somebody in place with like that. Because again, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Thank you, mate. And you're doing some counselling training as well.
Yeah, I've just completed that.
Congratulations.
It's not it's level 2 in counselling concepts.
I see.
And I started
like
an introduction into it, as in just to give you a basis of what you would need to set up an outline of what your skills are, counselling skills, listening skills, all the hoops you've got to jump through to be able to do it. But again, that's just educate, because I've had counselling myself.
Yeah.
Over the years, it was just interesting on what techniques they have, and what they do, and like listen to, and again, being in part of the group, it was just like it was like, how you fucking talking to these people? So that isn't you.
Yeah.
I was like being like when they asked questions, I was just like, well, I'll just answer the easy ones.
Yeah.
I was like proper like in there, but that's possibly because I had an interest in it.
You were passionate about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not necessarily that I want to become a counsellor, but it gave me an insight, because I think, well, I'm a good listener, and if I could help others, even through the Menfulness group, to be able to respond or to listen, like even in the I've found myself the last couple of sessions just listening to people and understanding them, reading the body language, not that was part of it, but just whether they're sat with their arms folded, whether the posture's kind of open and they're wanting to receive communication and stuff like that. But no, so and then it went through things that you wouldn't even consider, so like going through your core beliefs and values, and that was the first one. I'm like, I haven't got any core beliefs or values. So you have to go home and Google what are core beliefs and values. Think, oh, well, I could put that. And then I could put that. Because then it goes into like prejudices. Because when you're a counsellor, you could come up against anything.
Yeah.
It could be somebody that's been abused, people that have got relationship issues, or they could be suicidal, and it's like you don't know until that person comes to you, because they're not going to necessarily email you. Can you just tick these boxes of what you want to come for? And it's just to prepare yourself for that.
Because you've got to be ready and prepared and present for them, regardless of what they come with.
As much as I wanted to, the last thing you do was have a 10-15 minute what they call practice skills, of you had one of your people in your cohort as the client. The Sarah that ran the course was the observer, and then you were the counsellor, and you had to lead it. But if I was doing it in real life, I'd want to plan it, but you can't plan it because you just don't know what version. You don't want to steer them the way that you want to, and it's very much it's person led, it's client led, so it's however they want to take it, and it's just using the skills of listening or being reflective, letting them talk. What do you want out of this session? Not this is what you're going to get out of this session.
It sounds not dissimilar to coaching. Like I did some coaching qualification, and that's very much the same. And it can be really hard to, because I'm a talker. I'll fill gaps. I'll cut you off 10 times in this conversation.
But this is like well, with the coaching, it's like when I had the coaching with Wayne. It's like I do remember a moment where he said nothing. I thought there was something wrong with the screen. But now learning about, give the client silence.
Because they dig a little deeper.
Because then you give them an answer. But then you're allowing them 10 seconds where, yes, it is uncomfortable, that
Sometimes
silence.
that's why they fill it with something good.
But then they'll, and you do. And it's weird. It's just little things like that you can use in conversations with people. And even since that, whenever I chatted with friends, I'll ask, and it's like, sorry, it's not because I'm just learning this, but I feel I should ask you this, and why do you feel about that? And it's just little. It's really, again, along with the mental health first aid, it's just opened my eyes to what little things you can do and how empathic you could be with other people. And just revisiting things I've done in other classes through my work, just like setting smart goals. It's all very well. What do you want to get out of this? Oh, well, I want to be able to do this. But we need to get there.
Big goals can be scary, whereas 1% is still.
So it's like
closer.
Understanding that and the Johari window.
Oh yeah, I love the Johari.
Isn't
window.
it great? And it's like popped up. I'm like, oh, fucking hell, I can connect with that. Brilliant. I can put my hand up to this and
That's
know what this
I
is.
liked about coaching was that it felt like there was quite clear formulas. It was like a graphical way of solving some of the stuff that I was going through. You know what I mean? Whereas I think sometimes, and there's a lot of barriers to it. I don't know if you found this about counselling since you've sort of started learning about it, but a lot of my clients at work, because I do it through work, are women. Blokes tend to not apply for it, not want coaching. And I can only imagine that's because they think, oh, it's a bit, touchy-feely. It's a bit this, it's a bit, I can hear them saying it. I have heard them say it. And I think that may be the same for counselling. We're quite lucky in Menfulness, aren't we, that we've got an ethos that is get the counselling. If you want the counselling, get the counselling. It's there. It's free if you need it, and there's no barriers. Whereas out in the real world, out there, not in Menfulness, there's quite a barrier to blokes getting it, even though it is based on a framework. It is based on real principles. It's not touchy-feely. It's honest communication, and it's a safe environment for you to just vent what you've got going on. There still feels like there's like a real stigma around blokes getting it, because it might mean you have to talk about your feelings. Do you know what I mean? It's strange, isn't it?
Well, it is, and the benefit I've had is that because they've got the person that's hosting it, whether it's a coach or if it's a counsellor, they've got no emotional connection to it. All they want is to help you and direct you in the way that you want to go. They're not going to tell you. No. We're going to guide you to get there.
Yeah.
And that's the whole ethos of it. And the fact that that you can do it and that you come out of it. I mean, when I've been in it before, it's like I'll be just looking at my watch thinking, fucking hell, this is 50 quid an hour. All we've done is outlined it, and we haven't. That's me being a typical Yorkshireman. Yeah. And then you're like, right. And then again, with counselling, it's like, right, we'll pick it up here, and if there's stuff you can do at home, they'll suggest that. But then you come away and thinking, well, she hasn't told me what to do. Yeah. All she's brought out with me is what I think would benefit me to do. Yeah. And she's not even told me how to do it. She's said, how would you like to do it?
Yeah, so sometimes...
And it's just being reflective of a professional than, like, when I mention to my mates in particular situations, and they'll be like, quite, look, we'll just come and sort him out for you or whatever. And it's like, well, it's not helpful. Yeah. And you probably lose your job. Yeah. But I understand where you're coming from. But just when you're coming away from a counsellor, and because it's not... Because I did have a counsellor for a while, and it got more a friendship relationship. Yeah. And I thought, I'm not spending that money on just having a chat. Yeah. And then I took the opportunity of having the subsidised counselling with serendipity. Yes. I had 6 sessions, and I went back again last year because I felt I needed it with somebody else. And again, somebody else's perspective. Everybody's different. Everybody coaches different. Of course, yeah. Everybody counsels different.
I'm glad you've gone
once you
back
get a connection with somebody, and even in counselling, it's like, if you don't have a connection with that first counsellor, then... Move on.
There's no hard feelings. No, because it's about the relationship, isn't it? It's about that rapport. It's about that feeling safe. If you're feeling like I can't share with this person for whatever reason, then you need to find another.
But in the counselling training, it's like, but then you've got to spot these people that don't connect with you. Yeah. And you look back and you'll say, oh, yeah, you're my 6th counsellor in the last 6 months. Yeah. Then it highlights, right, is this right for counselling? Yeah.
Because not everybody is.
No, and if you get to a point where you are counselling somebody and it's lasted for months and you're still getting nowhere, some people will do it even on a weekly basis, not necessarily targeting one specific thing.
Yeah. I think it's certainly like in other countries and in America in particular, I think accessing therapy in whatever form is more normalised generally. Yeah. Whereas it feels very much like, oh, we've got to have a real serious problem here in order to feel like we need it, which might add to the stigma, I suppose. Is that, well, I'm not that bad. I'll be give it a few months and I'm sure I'll be feeling better, rather than like, well, actually, it doesn't matter what stage I'm at. It's actually, if I could use it, then why not? Do you think you might carry on with that then? How did you find it? Is it quite a lot of qualification?
I think it'd take up a lot of my time to become a counsellor. It's helped me communicate with people better and listen better. But it's not... like, how many... I think there's about 7 of us in the group. I don't think we're all going to go on to be counsellors, but some will benefit. There's a guy that's there that works at the crisis team in York. Oh, yeah. And then there was a couple of other people that worked there, and they've wanted it for other reasons. And like the girl that runs it, she's a social worker. Right. But there's even, you could become, like you say, you could diversify into coaching. Yeah. You could, I had mediation with my ex-wife 3 weeks ago. I'm sat there thinking, oh, I could even do this because it's listening skills. Yeah. It's not necessarily counselling you. It's using similar skills to what you could do through that.
I see.
And developing it in that. I could, and then, I don't know. Yeah. So it's opened my mind to be able to do other things. Yeah.
I see you in that field, like naturally. You just...
Well, yeah, because even going for the training, it's like, it didn't feel awkward. It didn't feel difficult. No. It's just like, well, I could do something.
And as someone who would maybe sit and not contribute as much, you were out there putting your hand up and getting stuck in.
And I just came away. It was just like, what was that about?
That just shows it exuberates from you, doesn't it? 'Cause I think when
you're passionate about something, it comes naturally, and it wasn't forced. It wasn't like, you did get homework, and it was quite stressful.
Yeah.
Over having to do this and talking about Sigmund Freud and all these, and I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But then after about 4 weeks, I overheard other people saying, I'm so behind with my homework, and in my head I'm thinking, well, I'm not behind.
Yeah.
But I have found it difficult.
So you're a bit
but I found the time to be able to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. Well, I'm glad you're on that journey, mate. And all of this stuff just makes you an even more valuable part of what we're trying to do. So thank you. So should we talk a little bit then about why Menfulness? Like, what brought you to us in the first place? We all have our different mental health journey, if you like. Do you want to talk a little bit about your journey and what might have brought you to us in the first place?
Well, we kind of touched on it. Pre-lockdown, it was just an outlet of being able to do activities because I lived quite a lonely life.
Yeah.
Coming out of the pub and having no friend. Well, having friends, but from a distance. But by that time, because it had been over like 4 or 5 years, they'd got married, they got kids.
Yeah.
And even though I'd go over and have a cup of tea or something, it's just like, right, but there's nobody local. And then it was like finding things to do with Henry, who at that time was about 3 or 4 years old. So it was just an outlet of doing something than just because even though I love it just being me and him, I also understand at that age you need to have their own age group of people.
Of course, yeah.
But I didn't know anybody in York to do that, and and my friends had kids who were that little bit older, so they weren't ready to. I mean, they would have probably played with a 3 or 4 year old.
Yeah.
And like my nieces and nephew, they're that little bit older now. So it was just really I don't know, it's hard. I wasn't seeking social outlet. It was just, I'll go and do that. I'm free. I'll go. Even though I'm not great at football. Yeah. It's like, I'll go and do that.
Yeah.
Or like when it was social circuits. I mean, I suppose at a time, because, I mean, we've not touched on it, but I've had a weight issue for about 30 years and it goes up and down.
Right.
And when I'm in a good place, I feel positive and I do I feel like I should be, and I feel like people in front of me and how they are, that's how I feel I am.
Okay.
But then I withdraw when I put weight on because I don't want to be the fattest person in the room. Right. And things like that. And that's always been like that.
Right.
I feel.
Yeah.
So when it was social circuits and football, I was at a good weight.
I see.
I'd come out of the relationship, I'd put a load of weight on from just being an emotional eater.
Yeah.
So I'd piled the weight on, went to Slimming World, supporting my mum, lost a load of weight, got down to like my lightest ever, about 12 stone.
Yeah.
I felt, I'll go play football. Not to kind of, it'll be so, it's just like, I'm comfortable going and running.
I see.
Because being 6 stone heavier and carrying 6 stone when you're running around, it's just like, yeah, that's not good. So I have that, and
thank you for telling me. I spoke to James last week. Yeah, if you listen to James,
yeah,
you are good. Have you listened to them all?
Of course, I have.
Oh, well, there's going to be some research done on this podcast in the not too distant future, and they're looking for people who've listened to them all. So thank you. But yeah, he talked a little bit about his relationship with food, and it's just a real eye opener, to hear, because it's something that blokes don't talk about all that much. And it's it is a big issue. It is a big problem for men as it is for women, and I think there's been quite a lot of work to address it in society around women's body image and fat shaming and just that relationship with food, and that doesn't seem to have filtered through with blokes yet, does it?
No.
There's not a lot of talk goes on about weight and stuff with men. So thanks for telling me.
Like hearing James's story last week, and you kind of think, you can kind of connect with that. And like even the simple thing he said, and I laughed when he said it, was when you go around to your mate's house, they offer you some food, you say, no, I'm all right. It's exactly what I do, whether I'm hungry or not. It's just like, no, I'm all right, thanks. Yeah. Because in my head, it's like, thank you for offering me, but I'm good. Yeah. Because I think he said it, I don't want them to see them eat. Yeah. I don't want them to see me eat.
He did say that, yeah.
Yeah. And it's just like, little things like that in the other podcasts. You can just a little snippet like that. I think, wow.
You connect with it.
And like you said, you feel, and I'm the same. When he comes into the room, he's the most positive person you could ever likely to meet, and you hear his backstory of what he's been through. And it's just like, wow.
Yeah, you just don't know, do you?
No.
You just can't know.
No.
And it doesn't matter how. If someone seems really, really happy and confident, it might just be that they're really good at pretending.
Yeah.
You know. Well, like I say, I think when someone does go out of their way to tell you something that people don't say very often and that is very personal to them, and especially saying it in a situation like this, you know, it's huge and it will help people, and people will hear that and be like, maybe I can talk about it. Because again, we have these layers of stigma, don't we? And we're here talking about sort of mental health and getting counselling, and that we've normalised that now.
Yeah.
But we've not quite normalised talking about that relationship with food, and I think it's massively important. Is that something, you know, that you feel you've found ways to work on? What do you do to try and help with that?
Well, prior to Christmas, I did. It came up on social media, a guy advertising that it wasn't just about losing weight; it was more about your mindset. And I thought, that both boxes tick, because I can lose the weight.
Yeah.
But it's just like with anything, so whatever the diet is, whatever the pills are, whatever gastric band or whatever, unless you can deal with why you've gained that weight in the first place, it will just come back on.
Right.
I benefit when I have a diet where I'm accountable to somebody, whether it's going on the scales or like with him, it was going on the scales, giving him measurements every 4 weeks.
Yeah. And
that positive feedback from it, you're doing really well, you've lost this amount of weight, and it just came really natural. But like what's gone on like since Christmas, I'm quite an emotional eater, and it's like beating myself up about the fact I've done really well. I should have pushed on from there. But with anything, and again, learning through what I've done through the courses, you can't tackle everything at once.
No.
So it's like, what is a priority? Well, a priority is to get my mental health all right.
Yeah. And
you can only do this by doing A, B, and C. You can't quite get to X, Y, and Z, which is getting control of your weight, if you don't get this in place. And I benefit. I listened to Stephen Bartlett's podcast.
Yeah. And
it was one that he had with Melanie C.
Oh yeah.
And again, it was in people talking about podcast, and it was just one thing with her. She had she was having an eating disorder, and which she admitted in because I didn't know at the time. And the doctor said, "Look, you're suffering with depression, and you've got an eating disorder." So we can't sort them both out. So what we'll do, we'll do a program of dealing with your depression, and then once your head's in a better space for that, then we'll tackle that. And it was just
it's like a pathway to where you want to be.
Because you can't go and tackle everything, and that's like
what you were saying before about the SMART goals, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like there's the end goal, and then there's the way that you get there, which is broken down into smaller.
Yeah.
That's
so
nice.
Like the last 3 months, it's like, right, I need to prioritize this, which I'm not going to go into, which will get me to a better place, which means then I'll be in a better frame of mind to have time to go to the gym, to eat better.
I see.
And push forward, and then get back to where, because I've always had a tummy and a chest, which I always hide behind. But then when I've got down to an ideal weight a couple of times, and even when I see pictures of me back, which there aren't many pictures of me, because I hate having my picture taken.
Right.
Unless I look back and think, like there was one of me and Henry that I took Henry never sticks by for a selfie. But we're on Filey Beach, and he had his eyes shut, which I don't care. He thinks it was funny that his eyes could shut because I won't show that picture. But I'm smiling.
Yeah.
And I see that person that I was then, and I'd like to get back there. I don't see it now.
Right.
But now I'm getting there to the point of, right, I'm kind of getting that thing that I'm dealing with dealt with.
Yeah. And
now I can focus on myself again, even though it's April. And I'd lost all the weight I could do it through Christmas, New Year. I was still losing weight. I was getting comments when I was going to football. I mean, I brushed them aside because it's like, oh, you're looking good. I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. You just brush it off, you think. But then...
You're looking good, Simon. And
inside, I'm not.
Do you think that that's appropriate or not? Because I don't think I'd ever comment on a woman's weight. I'd ever think I'd say, I might say you look great, but I don't think I'd ever say you're looking thinner or you've lost some weight, because I feel like that was rude. But do you think that it's more that people are more likely to say that to a man, or is it something that you would rather people not say at all?
I don't know.
It draws attention, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. All you go by is your weight, or the inches you've lost off your arms and whatever. But when other people start to notice
that's a good thing. That is a positive thing. No, that's good. Because I don't know. I think it's important that we work out what's acceptable for people. Where they are, and respect that actually some people might not necessarily want to have their weight commented on at all. But actually, that's really interesting to know. And so, have you found then that the weekly football helps you in that respect? Because it
definitely does. Because for me, because I'm hosting it, I feel not that. I mean, I'm probably putting the bibs and whatever out, and I'm chatting with people, but I don't stand at the middle like, right, guys, get round. And it's not like you're being stood in front of two, or like you guys did when you stood on the stage. Yeah. In January, and it's just like, okay, I could probably do it if the lights were dark. Yeah. But at that point, I did feel in a better place in weight wise. I see. But it's just like I do benefit from going to football, because if I didn't go to the football, I wouldn't have that night to fill. Yeah. And I wouldn't have an activity where each week I've got to go out. Yeah. And even like looking in the mirror, I mean, I wear the same thing: black top, black shorts, black socks, blue trainers. Yeah. It makes no difference. Yeah. But yeah, it definitely does make my mindset. I mean, I went last Friday or last Wednesday and hosted it, and it was last Friday, and had a snapshot of Henry for 2 or 3 hours after school, and I went and had a full-on roast carvery.
How did you?
Would not recommend it. Not after football. And we also played on the 7-a-side pitch as well, so there was a lot more running to do.
Sounds. But you felt ill after that, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I thought, shall I not? No, I will go.
He still went for it. Fair play. Yeah, because if people drop out, there's always people like quite quickly ready to jump in, isn't there?
Oh, there is. Well, that's why they've developed from Wednesday to a Sunday to a Friday, because there's that many people waiting. Yeah. And even now, the way that the meetup works, there's some like we could have like 16 people going, people dropping out, and 10 people on the wait list.
Well, maybe it's time for another game. We'll discuss that. Thank you so much for telling us about that, mate. Is there any more you want to say on that? I don't want to press you, but equally, you've got an opportunity if you want to.
Well, to do with my weight, what I've discovered, like since doing the counselling course, is, and I touched on it, is Sigmund Freud's theory, and I'm going to read it out because and it's a little bit to do with counselling, but counselling is more to do with the here and now. And the thing with my weight loss, I can stem it back to my weight gain was from the loss of my sister. She died in a car crash in 91. And back then there was no count. My mum and dad went to counselling, but the lady that they went with, it was just, there was no connection there. And there was nothing like Menfulness back then. There was no talk of it. And I just felt, I probably, again, looking back at, again, doing a mental health first aid course of eating disorders and self-harm, that's been highlighted as what I did. Yeah. I've never shared that with anybody. But because I can connect to that, it's like what I'd like to do now from next level of counselling, and I've spoken to Sinead at Serendipity, is to speak to a psychotherapist, which is slightly different because that's dealing with, let me just say what it is. So Sigmund Freud's theory of psychodynamic suggests that events in our childhood have a great influence on our adult lives, shaping our personality. If an individual is engaging in unhealthy behaviours, they need to uncover the unconscious processes that are causing those behaviours. Events that occur in childhood can remain in the unconscious and cause problems as adults. So psychotherapy is a little different to counselling, as it works with the conscious, subconscious, unconscious processes and thoughts to help with difficulties originating from the past and present. Yeah. So because I've never really, not necessarily dealt with it, but it's like I'm still in stressful situations, in traumatic situations, I'm reaching for food. Yeah. And I think now that I've understood this particular theory, that, as I say, with counselling, it's the here and now. Yeah. With psychotherapy, it's a lot to do with underlying what is there, but is not touched on.
Yeah.
So similarly, when this actually cropped up, one of the girls in the counselling group gave an example. She was scared to fly. She didn't know why. She would not go on a plane. She'd scream blue murder to get on a plane, and she just didn't know why. And she went for therapy as a child, and she went for hypnotherapy. And it turns out she watched a programme on the news report on what was a plane disaster in Scotland? Lockerbie.
Lockerbie, yeah.
She watched that as a child, thought that every time a plane goes up, that is what's going to happen. In her subconscious, never thought about it.
Yeah.
Years have passed and never really connected with why, but through hypnotherapy, I don't think I'll have hypnotherapy, that would be fine with psychotherapy, is the fact that it highlighted the reason why, and she got all teary, not there, through a hypnotherapy, and it was connected to this TV, it wasn't a documentary, it was just that night that it had happened, and when you see
She'd seen some of it, and it had been so traumatic for her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That you've had to go, that you didn't know anything about it, but somewhere deep down, unless you're asked the right questions, it doesn't bring it out of you.
Yes.
So I'm kind of hoping in a way that I can find out why I do binge eat, which I sometimes do. And again, it's not until it's highlighted in this that I think, that is what I do. It's not that I'm just eating the wrong things. I'll eat something and then I'll eat the same thing. And then I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, Simon? You know you're overweight. You know what you can do. You know you're going to the gym. Why have you just eaten all that? And I think somewhere deep down, and I feel good that I'm telling you this, I'm not got upset about it, because I know that I think this will actually, not like I say work, it's not a kind of, I finally think I've knocked on something. So I think having this psychotherapy with that, like, next level, that we'll get there.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will alleviate something.
Yeah. I hope so. I'm amazed by how articulate you are about it, because it's obviously something that you don't talk about a lot, and it's it's mind-boggling that you can speak with so much conviction.
I feel good that I have done.
Yeah.
And the other one with it, coincidentally, is also self-harm.
Yeah.
And again, I've not told anybody this, but I used to get like wounds on my upper body.
Yeah.
And because nobody would see them, and again, they touched on it in the mental health first aid course, where I didn't know I was doing that, and that's what it was way back then.
Yeah.
But when it was talked about, I'm like, that's what I was doing.
It's because there's a taboo around it, and because there's a stigma attached to it. It can often make the people who are going through it feel like it's strange or abnormal. But the reality is it's human, and that it is very common, and it's not. It's hearing someone like you talk about it in terms like that will be helpful, because there'll be people who are maybe hiding it and or not having realised that it's a normal thing to happen, and that it's a coping mechanism. And I guess the same with your relationship with food is it's potentially a way of coping with what you've been through, and it's not. You've been through a lot, man. You've been through a lot, an incredible amount. Until this conversation, until you agreed to come on the podcast, I didn't realise you'd lost your sister. Like, we haven't had that conversation.
Well, nobody, and even like back to when Wayne had his podcast, I felt similar to him, that people say, "Oh, have you got any brothers?" And he'll talk about his two brothers. If I don't know if that's right or not, but whatever number are alive. Yeah. And it's never discussed. So when have you got any? Yeah, I've got a brother, and I used to say, and I also got a sister that died. But then that shuts off any conversation, because it's just like, oh, sorry about that. Didn't know about that. Yeah,
and then don't always feel, because again, there's a taboo around that too.
Yeah.
Where I'm so sorry that you went through that. And it's again, I'm grateful that you can share it. I can imagine that you must relive that. It's 30 years ago then? 32 years ago. Years. What was her name, if you don't? Joanna.
Yeah.
And how old were you at
2 months, 16. I'd just done my GCSEs. And then went back to school. But again, I remember at home, I remember the day that the police came. I remember the scream my dad and mum gave. And then I remember family coming around as getting upset, but I just don't remember I don't know if I blocked it out. Hopefully, sessions with psychotherapy, they might be able to dig in there. But I just don't remember. I remember going to my godparents who lived just down the road, and I went to see them quite frequently on a weekend. And I don't remember if that was because mum and dad wanted to talk. Yeah. And again, thinking now, and there's no blame whatsoever on the parents that they didn't talk, because I don't think you did back then.
No, that's what tools
and
they
the
had.
thing with being a dad now, it's like 6 weeks after that, my dad lost his dad. So we'd not even got over that. Yeah. And it's like, how does he deal with that?
That level of trauma, when you're a kid, you kind of imagine that your parents are like superheroes who can handle anything and they have all the answers, but they're just human beings like we are, aren't they? And like you say, they dealt with what they could in the way that they did best, and as did you at 16 years old, which is, you're just getting the tools to figure out who you're going to be, and to lose someone so significant in your life, man. I'm so sorry, Simon. Thank you so much for telling us. And what you're giving back to people, like, I know she'd be so proud of you. Do you know what I mean? I hope you don't mind me saying that.
No,
I really, and as for, I'll post some links, because again, there's other charitable organisations out there that help people deal with eating disorders, that help people, and I know you'll have learnt a bit about that on your mental health first aid as well, won't you? It is common. I know it's probably seems less common for men to talk about it, but if there's anybody out there that is struggling, we'll post some links in the description for where you can go for some more support on that. Wow. Somewhat, you get to know someone, especially, in a group like this where we are much more cards on the table. We talk to each other like, I'm on a journey with you. I know what you're going through at the moment, and I respect that, how much of that you want to talk about today, and that's fine. But there's so many layers in there to what people are going through, and like what you talk about with psychotherapy, and like I get that. I feel that. For me, like, I haven't access to counselling, not because I don't think Serendipity wouldn't do an amazing job and that I couldn't benefit in some way from it, but I know what I'm going. I have some understanding, awareness, if you want, about that. What I'm going through is childhood based, rather than situational, rather than something that I need to go back quite a long way into areas that I haven't got the tools to talk about. A few people have said to me, "Why don't you do a podcast? When are you getting on?"
Yeah, I do think that. I'm thinking, who's going to interview Sam to do that, or will he just
interview
set the
himself?
Questions up yourself? And I'm sure you've got some app that you can just interview yourself.
I'm doing that in my own head all the time, So I'll just let people in. There is stuff that is hard for me to talk about from still not having dealt with the idea that people might listen to this who it might upset, both from burdening them and from might they be part of why I feel the way that I do. So there's a lot of that, but then there's also that I haven't really yet got the words for it. I've got the awareness of the symptoms, that I don't feel good enough for the world most of the time, and that I really struggle with criticism, and I need validation from others in order to quell that idea that I'm not enough, and that some of my unconscious behaviors I'm bringing into my awareness, but it doesn't answer why. It just means now I see them, and I'm so lucky that for me, I got to a point I couldn't cope. Panic attacks, feeling like I'm going to lose all my friends, distancing myself from the world. But I was able to, at that point, access support and grab hold of Menfulness and talk about it and utilise it to give me a purpose. But I still need work. I'm still not where I want to be. And I think, like you say, from the description that you've given there, that's the sort of therapy that I need to get myself into a position
that's why
where
I've kind of connected with it, because it's when they talk about this unconscious mind, that there's something way down in your brain. And
that I can't remember very well.
It's just this simplicity of it is like anybody going through any kind of trauma now will, again with this psychotherapy and Sigmund Freud's philosophy on it, it all links back to some form of childhood trauma. So for me, the one that I'm connecting to is the loss of my sister.
Yeah.
For the girl that couldn't fly, it was her childhood trauma that she'd seen.
Witnessed something like that.
Witnessed that, but she'd watched it on telly. Her parents were probably out the room, but it hit there. But it took hypnotherapy.
It's somewhere in there. She could remember it, but it wasn't immediately accessible to her conscious mind.
But if you visualize, like, and I think it's on what goes through people's head like an iceberg, where you see the tip of it and you know everything going on, but it's like the base of that iceberg where it goes right down into the sea. It's just like that. It's just what you don't see. So I'm not pinning all my hopes on it.
No.
I just it's one of those things that if I didn't go on that course, I wouldn't have learned about it. And I hope it will benefit in some way.
Yeah.
And that I can kind of finally conquer.
Yeah.
That and not be in a position where I do need to emotionally on whatever subject it is and deal with it in a different way.
Yeah.
Or understand why I did it and binged eat 30 years ago for comfort because I didn't feel I had it back then.
Yeah. Well, I hope you find what you're looking for.
I'll keep you posted on how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, you know, it's like remarkable and refreshing to hear you talk the way you have about all this.
I wouldn't have gone on that course if it wasn't. It's one of those sliding doors moments. If Menfulness didn't start up, if I didn't meet Jack and doing the social circuits and the football, and then having the time to be, and like with lockdown, it's given me that time because I've not got a full-time job. It's just part-time hours, so I was able to do the mental health first aid course. Yeah. And then because I've had counselling through Serendipity, I'm like, I think I can do this because the way that they've treated me and helped me, it's like, I think I could do it. Oh, there's a course coming on. It was actually, I think, Chris Vesey that had put a thing in the group and he was doing it. I couldn't do it on the nights he was doing. I did it around time to suit me and when I didn't have Henry. And it's just one of those things that I probably wouldn't have done before, but it's that confidence inside you and the fact that, well, if I do that, I can maybe... It gives me an outline of whether I could become a counsellor. Yeah. But being on that course, it's now, well, I don't have to be a counsellor. Yeah. I could be maybe start late in life and go and be a social worker, become a mediator, help out in Menfulness, depending on what direction that goes and how big it explodes into, hopefully. And where we need things like that.
Well, I'm in no doubt that, you know, wherever this goes, you'll be an integral part of this journey, like you have been from the start. And we had Matty Laycock on a couple of shows ago, and he got involved. He started learning about it. He went and started doing some work with Changing Lives, and he heard someone talk about OCD, and that was the first time he realised what he was experiencing. So I think that's quite common, that you take an interest in things because of what you've been through, but in doing that, you find some of the answers or some of the pathways to where you want to be. And so whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, we'll be cheerleading you.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? And as always, we're so grateful to have you and everything that you've done for us. We would not be Menfulness without you. So thank you so much, mate. We'll talk a little bit about content and songs, unless there's any more you want to talk about.
No, I think we've gone for a record.
We have, haven't we?
What, are we into 2 hours now?
We're getting that way. I mean, I'll probably edit me out. I've done a lot of waffling, which is not my job.
Well, I'm sat here going through it and thinking, genuinely, I don't think there's anything we need to edit out, but I'm sure you'll find something.
Yeah, it'll be me.
I'm quite happy with what we said. So,
good. No, that's good, mate. That's good. I'm happy too. So we talked about... you mentioned that there might be some quotes you want to share. If you want to, that's great. If not, that's no pressure. We can go straight into songs.
I want for like when they pop up on social media or like positive outlooks, and I share them in the group, and it's just some nuggets that kind of I save them. I've got loads of little galleries in my
sometimes we get
camera.
A quote in that you've written that you've cut.
But I can also use that in if I want to say like it's like, wow, that's a good way of saying that.
Yeah. No, you're always your WhatsApp contributions are always inspiring, mate. So you've got some of them to share with us, have you?
Music does play a big part in my life because, like when I'm at home alone, I've always got to have. Well, I feel I've always got to have music on because I just hate silence. Yeah. So when I'm at work, I've always got earpods on, and it's just like when you're happy, you enjoy the music, and when you're sad, you understand the lyrics. Yeah. And it could be. I mean, I've listened to radio. I feel I've grown up in the last 6 months because I've switched from Radio 1 to Radio 2.
Oh, exactly. It's made the transition.
I feel so much mature from what... But some of the tracks that come on that you listen to when you're 18, in the 80s and 90s, and then you listen to it, and because you hear everything when you've got your ear, because when it's on just in the background, it's just background music and you don't get it.
Yeah.
But when you listen to it, and if you just sat there in your car,
it's in your head.
and then you hear the lyrics, you're like, but even going back to Frankie's, when he did his songs and he said like Carter and Chameleon, I'm like, how have you got something out of that track that you just that you're dancing with on a table when you're pissed, and that's the only time you ever hear it, and then you listen to it and like, wow.
Oh my God, what a tune. Yeah. That's awesome.
You just don't think of the lyrics back to something like that. Another one that stands with me, when you replace "why is this happening to me" with "what is this trying to teach me," it just shifts a level.
Yeah.
It's like whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
It's not it's what I'm going to learn from it.
Yeah.
Not why is it happening. You've just got to kind of turn it.
It's a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, most of the growth that I think humans do is usually through adversity of some kind, isn't it? It's usually through, and especially a lot of the blokes that come to us, they've hit a point where they've needed something. Not everyone, but most, and that's the point that they've made some improvement. That we've, for whatever reason, they've reached out for help, but it's taken them experiencing something difficult for them to go, right, well, what do you need? Rather than why me, it's never, what can I do in order to be in a better place? Yeah. I like it. It's good.
I'll do one more. It kind of sums up Menfulness. A mate put it on his, and I just nicked it. Kind of sums up what we do. You don't have to be positive all of the time. It's perfectly okay to feel sad, angry, annoyed, frustrated, scared, and anxious. Having feelings doesn't make you a negative person. It just makes you human.
Nice. That's lovely. Yeah. It's right too, isn't it?
Yeah. So I've got boxes and boxes. I mean, I'll look at them, and then sometimes I'll go through them and I'll delete them, or I've got a couple on my wall at home.
Where they've really hit and you want
that I see it, and even and again going back to when he's doing his coaching, and I was sat there and I had the quote behind me, and like, Simon, I said, what? So just look behind you, and I'm like, oh yeah, and it's I got it commissioned by it's a big wooden heart. Oh God, I'm trying to think what it says now. It said, if I can't think we'll edit
Send
that
it.
one in.
Well, yeah, or I'll put it in the blurb. I'll put it in the blurb. Yeah, that's fine. Let me know. Yeah, so you send me what it is, and I'll edit that in.
That's mental.
In my own voice.
Morning.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool, man. And I think positive quotes, affirmations are hugely important. People have been there. Human beings have. Whatever you're going through, you might feel like you're on your own. Someone has been through it and written about it, and it's just about trying to find that perfect way of, that perfect bit of content, that perfect song, that perfect course, whatever it is that hits with you and gets you to that next space.
Well, that's it. And going on to songs, it's like when you just hear that song and that one lyric, and it's like, it's a 3.5 minute song, and it just connects with you. And like, there's a reason why that's come on, and I've taken the time to listen to it, and I've heard that lyric.
You've connected,
and it's just like, I've never, even if it's a song I've heard hundreds of times, it's just like, it just hit you in a different way. Yeah. Not necessarily that it's a sad song. It could be like something that's quite uplifting, and it's like, you don't even realise those are the song lyrics.
No. So go on then, let's have your songs. We've got a happy and a sad, one of each.
So my sad one was "Boys Don't Cry." Who was it by, Sam? Because I
The Looney Years.
The Looney Years.
I hadn't heard it until just before this chat.
Yeah.
Great.
So
really nice.
It's just great 3 minutes. How I came about it, Sunday night TV. It was a guy that was in a band. Can't remember what band it was. The Vamps.
Oh yeah.
And he was doing it. He was in the final, and I just caught it when he was giving his pre-skate talk, where he was talking about his parents and his mental health, and then he was dancing to the song that he'd written. talked about things that I can connect with.
Yeah.
He's written a song about it.
Yeah.
His parents have got to hear it and they're emotional. And then he's dancing and he's portraying his movements through what it means to him. And it's just like, and then you hear the lyrics and it's just like, wow. And it's not a slow, sad track, even though I've put it as one of my sad tunes. It's just quite...
No, it's
just some of the
inspiring,
words
but
that are in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's one where boys don't cry, girls do, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Because people expect girls to cry, and that's absolutely normal.
Yeah. Maybe it makes us human or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's lovely, mate. And it's perfect for what we're trying to do, isn't it?
Yeah. And then there was another one that cropped up, which is called Don't Be So Hard on Yourself by Billy Lockett.
Don't be so hard on yourself and love every part of yourself. There ain't no shame in you asking for help, so don't be so hard. Do you pick apart the pieces of your body and overthink everything in your life? Do you compare yourself to almost anybody? Don't worry, I'm the same. Oh God, we're all the same. But you can't forget the places you've been. And you can't forget the fire you bring. And you can't forget the little voice in your head saying, don't be so hard on yourself.
And one of the lines is, don't be so hard on yourself and love every part of yourself. There ain't no shame in asking for help.
That's perfect.
And then it pains me to say it, but You'll Never Walk Alone, that kind of, even though it's a Liverpool anthem, and it gets me every time I hear it when it's played at Anfield. But Marcus Mumford's done a cover of it.
Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone, and you'll never walk alone.
But again, it's just somebody's, and I mean, it's obviously the same words,
Yeah.
but it's how it's like toned down and it's not connected to football or whatever, and it's just his lyrics, and it's just like,
That's lovely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, which is it's an amazing
yeah.
anthem, amazing song.
Yeah.
Thank you. And happy song.
Happy song. What did I put?
We went Harry Styles, Treat People with
Yeah,
Kindness.
only because of sentiment in it, and it also links to Jack and his family put a video together where they reenacted. If you've ever seen the
they
video
did.
of it,
Yes, he sent us this.
yeah, he put it in the. I don't know if he just put it in a certain group, but they must have rehearsed it, and all these, because he's got what, seven brothers.
Yeah, six. The six
So
of them all
they all danced with the partners to a similar routine, and it just gave so much joy. I think it was it for his niece's 16th?
I can't remember exactly what it was for.
I think. I can't
Yeah.
quite remember.
I got a good feeling. I'm just taking it all in. Floating up and dreaming. Dropping into the deep end. And if we're long enough, they'll sing a song for us. And we'll belong.
But whenever I hear the song, I visualise him because I think him and Rose got dressed up as superheroes. Was he Superman?
Yeah.
Can't remember what Rose was, but it's just the fact that somebody's edited it together. Sentiment of the song, that it's still quite a happy, joyful song.
Yeah.
And that you can connect with it like that.
Yeah. Thank you, mate.
And then Always You Can Call Me Out by Paul Simon.
Oh,
That any time that comes on, you can't not be sad to it.
that's an amazing tune.
Yeah.
I'm
And
glad
one
we've
that's
got
just
some-
out at the minute, which is Struggle by the Lathams.
Oh, I think
Quite a new band.
I think we had this on. It might be our next guest. 'Cause
Oh,
It might
okay.
be our next guest that's not out yet. I think this was one of his choices
Oh,
as
right,
well.
okay.
Yeah, because I hadn't heard it before, but it's
Because
really
I've heard
good.
of 2 or 3 of them,
Yeah.
of their songs, and then this one came out, Struggle, so you listen to lyrics. So again, it's quite upbeat,
Yeah.
but it's got an underlying message.
Okay, no, that's great.
And I'm quite
dude.
into the band of what else they've put out. Because originally, when I chose them, I thought, well, if this is going on to a playlist,
Yes.
it's like I want it to stand out that these are ones that Simon have chosen.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. And I'm excited to get these in there. And thank you so much. I've already gushed over you enough, so I'm not going to. But I genuinely thank you for coming here and doing this with me. Thank you for spending this time. Like, you're welcome to come back whenever you want. I hope I haven't kept you too long. It's nearly 10:30, so apologies. Yeah, I'm so grateful for what you do for us. Let's do this again, and I promise you I will come to the Breakfast Club.
Yes, do,
I
mate.
will be
Thank
there.
you.
I will
With
be
or
there.
without Luna. You've been much welcomed.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
All right, mate.
Until
Thank
next time, brother. Big love.
Cheers.
Peace.
Thank you.
There he goes. Another Menfulness king. Honoured to hear Simon's story today. Felt much quicker than 2 hours as well. Did you enjoy that? Let me know. Could you do it? Get in touch. Thanks for being here with me today. Big love. Keep talking.